Tommy wasn't scared of much. He wasn't scared of the dark. He knew he could switch a light on. He wasn't scared of being on his own because he liked himself. He wasn't scared of animals. He knew that if he was nice and kind to them, they'd be nice to him. He wasn't scared of getting lost. He had a good sense of direction. He wasn't even scared of bullies because he knew that they'd meet bigger bullies one day. He wasn't scared of people who had different coloured skin or different ways. He knew that people are all people and kind of all the same. He wasn't scared of school. He knew he had a lot to learn. He wasn't scared of his mummy and his daddy. He knew they loved him. He was scared of the terrible eater from space. He was scared that the terrible eater from space lived under his bed, in his room. He'd never seen the terrible eater from space. But he knew it was there and getting hungry. He knew he was safe when he was in his bed. It couldn't get him there. It could only get him when he was in the space between the door and the bed. It couldn't come out from under the bed. It would disintegrate. But if he wasn't careful, it could pull him under the bed, and that would be the end of him. He knew that the terrible eater from space was getting hungrier and hungrier every day. Except Sundays and bank holidays when it just bided its time and lurked. Unfortunately, the other thing that scared him was telling his mummy and daddy about the terrible eater from space. They always said what a brave boy he was, and so he couldn't tell them he was scared. So every night, Tommy would run from the bedroom door to his bed and jump onto it just as the terrible eater from space was about to grab his ankle and pull him under the bed. Phew. One day, Tommy's mummy told him that his little brother Stephen was big enough to have his cot moved from her room into Tommy's. No, said Tommy. He can't come into my room. What? Said his mummy. You love your baby brother. I thought you'd love to have him share. Tommy did love his baby brother, but he knew that Stephen was too small to jump out of reach of the terrible eater from space, and that the terrible eater from space was so hungry now that Stephen would be gone in one big bite. Tommy ran to his room and he closed the door. He even put a chair against it and would talk no more. His daddy came home from the office at the usual time, but Tommy didn't come out to meet him as usual. He doesn't want Stephen to share his room, said his mummy, and now he won't come out of his room. Knock, knock, went his daddy. Who's there? Said Tommy. Let us. Let us who? Said Tommy. Let us in. I want to talk with you, laughed the daddy, and Tommy let him in. Eventually, Tommy told his dad about the terrible eater from space, and his daddy told him not to worry, that he'd sort it out. The next day was Saturday, and Tommy's daddy didn't have to go to the office. He took Tommy with him to a big place where they sold wood and tools, and they bought loads of stuff, including a sign that said, "Danger! Keep out!" When they got home, Daddy explained to Tommy that he had some dangerous work to do and told him that he was to look after Mummy and baby Stephen for a while. Then he brought all the wood and the tools and the vacuum cleaner into Tommy's room. and hung the "Danger, keep out" sign on the door. Much later, he came down for dinner and he said that he'd finished. He'd hoovered out the terrible eater from space, who'd then disintegrated in the hoover and so would not be back. After dinner, Tommy and Daddy actually took Tommy and Mummy and Stephen upstairs to look. The sign was gone, and so were the tools and the wood and the sawdust, all clean and tidy. Tommy hardly recognised his room. Where his bed used to be, there was a sort of a climbing frame with a seat and a desk at the bottom and a bed up on top, really high. Tommy wasn't scared of heights. He could see the floor underneath and no terrible eater from space. And by the window was Stephen's cot, and Tommy could see the floor underneath that and no terrible eater from space there either. He gave his daddy a big smile and a big hug, and his mammy gave his daddy a big smile and a big hug. And Stephen gave Tommy a big smile and a big hug and bit him on the nose. Ouch. Now, Stephen sleeps in Tommy's room, and Tommy sleeps soundly, knowing that the terrible eater from space is gone and is scared of nothing. Well, almost nothing. Sometimes when he wakes up and sees how Stephen is looking at him, well, he knows that Stephen, with lots of new teeth, is just waiting for a chance to use them on him again. The end.